Helldivers 2 is currently struggling. I mean, that much is evident, as the studio has now settled into bi-monthly crash fix and optimization updates, but we've just received a tease for new content with fiery keywords that will apparently keep us buzzing. Yeah, don't worry, it will all make sense in just a moment, but before we dive into all the latest, please take a moment to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell. Swipe left on mobile to hype the video as we dive into what's around the corner for Helldivers. Okay, since there's an ongoing galactic war and current major order, let's get that out of the way first. And at the time of this recording, which is 12:40 p.m. EST, there were only 26,200 divers logged on worldwide across all platforms, with about 13,500 of those on PC. So it's currently at a 50-50 split between PC and console. Now, with 46-ish hours left on the current major order to collect common samples, we've knocked the 15 million collected on Illuminate planets out of the park and are currently at 44.3 million into the 62.5 million required on bot planets. Here's a question for chat. Do you think we're going to pull this one off? Because there are still a lot of samples left to go. Drop a comment and let's see where the community lands on this one. But just to give you a little insight into this, at our current pace, the Helldivers companion app puts us completing this in just under 50 hours, putting us at 97.64% done once the timer runs out. Other than that, we've got the DSS in low orbit on Tarsh in Automaton territory, helping to go up against a very low liberation resistance rate of just 1.15%. And there's also a level 16 defense campaign currently ongoing on Akamar 4 in the Terminid controlled zone. With it being just 2 weeks since our last game update and patch, and it is of course Tuesday, Arrowhead delivered a small update to the game. Into the Unjust update 4.1.2 dropped early this morning, and for me on PC this was just under 112 megs in size, so it's not that substantial. And if some of my PlayStation and Xbox viewers out there could also comment on the size they saw for your consoles, I'd be very appreciative. Now, what I will say is that even though the patch was small in size, again, at least for me, it took nearly 10 minutes after downloading it to actually unpack the contents and then patch those patches into the patch of the game so it could then be patched. Make sense? Okay. Included in update 4.1.2 were 6 total crash fixes, including one for all of us that use Alt-Tab when jumping out of full screen mode, which is me 1000%. There's one here for a specific issue with the Hive Lord. They fixed a crash when leaving or disconnecting from the game, which to me does not sound like the one we would see on PC when you would actually exit the game after a full play session and it would just hard lock our rigs. There's also 2 PC-specific crashes here, one for when changing graphic settings during some missions, no mention of what mission types those were, and there's also one here for when launching into city biomes, along with a crash that would occur when Pelican 1 lands. Yeah, which I've seen that one, and it is maddening to finish up a level 10. You've got all the samples, everyone's holding off the hordes at extraction, and then poof, the game would crash, causing you to lose everything just moments before extract. On top of those crash fixes, we also got 2 rather unknown, call them miscellaneous fixes, including that they fixed the shield backpack and shield relay because they were not protecting players from the effects of storms such as acid rain, which in case you didn't know is an armored debuff for us and our enemies, as well as sandstorms and blizzards. Also, there's some sort of audio fix here for when the sound would completely cut out after a long play session, assuming you didn't crash first. And finally, we've got 4 new optimizations. One for the aforementioned environmental storms like sand, blizzards, and acid, and how they apply their effects so they don't tank performance so much, which by the way is appreciated. They optimized destruction on various tree assets, again, so it didn't tank performance so much, especially when we were nuking entire forests at once. But I thought there was a tree performance patch mentioned in a previous update, but I could be wrong, ? There was an issue with Bile Titans who could walk through and mantle terrain in areas that they shouldn't be able to, and then there's this last one. It's kind of par for the course with Helldivers and Arrowhead. They fixed sandstorms and blizzards no longer slowing us down, which, in case you didn't know, if you ran with, I believe, the shield during these storms, you could plow through them just sprinting full blast, where the storms would not slow you down. But as we've seen time and time again with Arrowhead, updates and changes that give the Helldivers too much ability or power are immediately taken out and patched out by the Super Earth Ministry of the Fun Police. As always, I'll drop as many links as I can source to today's patch notes down in the video description and pinned comments, but that little splash there at the end is what's making all the headlines. And here's what it says, quote, "We also kindly ask you to put a fiery red circle around the date, December 2nd, as we will have some buzzing updates for you all." And the buzzing does not refer to me. I can attest to that. 1000% it has nothing to do with me. But instantly, the Helldivers Reddit and Discord started posting about how a new bee update was coming to the game, playing off of the mentioned buzzing. Now, speculations also began to run wild within the community as to what the fiery description means, but in terms of December 2nd, the only thing I could find is that that is the day that in Helldivers lore, the Ministry of Science concluded all reports on Meridia. In that report, it was confirmed that all evidence suggested that Meridia was nothing more than an ordinary black hole, despite the Helldivers using this mysterious dark fluid and destroying the bug planet that created it. Of course, from there, we know the rest because we lived it. The black hole was actually not a black hole. It began moving closer and closer to Super Earth until eventually the full invasion fleet of the Illuminate just popped out and tried to burn our planet to the ground. Could this be the fiery ring they mentioned in the update? Are we getting volcano Mordor-ish biomes? Or is this going to bring in fireflies or something odd like that? I mean, who in the hell actually knows? But it will appear in the game in about 2 weeks' time. Make sure to drop your expectations in the comment section so we can all see just how crazy you think that date's going to be. GamesRadar caught wind of this mysterious message bookending our update and ran with this headline. Helldivers 2 drops a cryptic message with its latest patch notes asking us to draw a fiery red circle around early December for some buzzing updates, immediately sparking speculation. They go on to say, what did Arrowhead Studios mean by this? Of course, like us, they saw this message early today, and they too are trying to figure out its meaning, going on to say, everyone is already trying to figure out what Arrowhead means by the message, particularly by emphasizing the words fiery and buzzing. While my mind immediately jumped to a fire NATO filled with bees, oh hell, what that must be like, this is probably not the right answer. Other more sensible people have suggested the addition of a new weapon like the honey badger. Okay, on Reddit, one user writes, honey badger confirmed, while another suggests, hear me out, bot B-boss incoming. Okay, honestly, this honey badger reference is completely lost on me right now. Maybe I just need a shot of caffeine. Maybe y'all can throw me a lifeline here too. What am I missing in terms of how honey badger lines up with December 2nd and fiery circles around that date along with buzzing? Clue me in, please. Drop a comment. In other news, Helldivers 2 has popped up again this year for the 2025 Game Awards to be held on December 11th. Of course, as part of the pre-show hype, all the nominees in each category have been made public, with Helldivers showing up in 2 of these. The first of these is in the Best Ongoing Game category, going up against Final Fantasy XIV, Fortnite, ooh, that's a tough one, Marvel Rivals, and No Man's Sky. In fact, there's a lot of tough competition in that category. Additionally, Helldivers is also nominated in the Best Community Support category, once again versus Fortnite, No Man's Sky, and Final Fantasy XIV, along with Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, so good luck to the team in both of those areas. Also making some headlines, as it always does during these award shows, are some of the big names that were snubbed, especially in the Game of the Year category, with notables Ghost of Yotei, Split Fiction, and the Indiana Jones game not showing up here, but you do see Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which is littered throughout all of this year's categories, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silksong, and finally KCD 2. And finally, we've had another Shams Jorjani sighting, this time again appearing on the Game Business Show. Links to this one can be found in the video description, where Arrowhead's CEO talked on a whole host of subjects, some of which were related to Helldivers 2, and as usual, he made a few headlines along the way. Helldivers 2 boss says being a huge success is actually quite simple. Quote, "If you give the players what they want, they'll be happy." That's the headline FRVR ran with, and what a novel concept, right? However, this was part of a broader discussion that involved bringing the ODST warbond, which is of course Halo, to Helldivers, along with the long-requested inclusion of Xbox. Now, if only Arrowhead could not only bring the players what they want, but to also stop meddling with the balance and mechanics of those desirable items, we would be in a better spot than before. Jorjani was also asked when Helldivers 2 might be appearing on Switch 2, and this sounded, at least to me, that it was entirely a never say never reaction, but in the background it was really never going to happen. While it would be crazy to see Nintendo join in the Helldiver army, I can't imagine what this game would run like on that platform, but my guess is not very well at all. Kind of lost in that near hour-long discussion is the topic of AI as it relates to the broader games industry, but also how it specifically applies to fellow Swedish studio Embark and Arc Raiders. Helldivers 2 boss argues Arc Raiders AI use, quote, actually makes games better, and that people jump to extreme takes about the tech. Surely there's a middle ground here. Let's just make sure that people are paid for their work, he says in the headline GamesRadar ran with. Jorjani also went on to say this, quote, we need to make sure that we're not stealing people's intellectual property and rights, but overall believes that, quote, people jump to extreme takes. My thing with Arc Raiders is I think it's a very interesting use case that actually makes gaming better, end quote. This is a very interesting topic I touched on again with yesterday's Arc Raiders upload, including their use of TTS AI versus what we saw in the release of the latest Call of Duty Black Ops 7 title, and of course, both reviews by Eurogamer and how these applications are initiated. Now, if you're interested in how this is kind of all breaking down, I'll drop you a link to my video down in the video description. But again, it is a fascinating subject for sure, and one that will dominate our games from now on. But here's where you get to chime in. What are your thoughts on what we should expect to see on December 2nd? Did you see any sizable changes to performance after today's update? And would you ever see HD2 performing well or even at all on Switch 2? Drop a comment and let's see where the community lands on these and any Helldivers related topics. Now, I know as I've been reading your comments that so many of you have pressed pause on Helldivers for now, choosing to wait for new content and to give the devs time to get the game into a playable state, which explains the player numbers. But as I've said in previous videos, Helldivers seems to be a game with infinite lives, and it's always up to the task of bouncing back and impressing its players once it's ready to drop new content. In case you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe and don't forget to ring the notifications bell. If you're on mobile, swipe left on your comment section to hype the video. Thank you to all of our current channel members, and until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.